Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So James Gunn recently just had an interview and this is what he stated. If people watch the next season of Peacemaker, they'll see where a lot of these things are going. So this is James Gunn telling to the world that nobody knows exactly where the DCU is going to go next, but it is going to be very, very exciting. And the only way you could find out on where we could be headed is by watching Peacemaker Season 2. Now, obviously, this is brilliant marketing. It's one of the ways that you can have more people tune in to watch Peacemaker Season 2, but at the end of the day, us fans do have a lot of questions. We want to understand what is the broad narrative in James Gunn's DCU. Moving forward from here, I'm only going to be talking about the pure theories, pure speculations. None of this is true. It is just, once again, pure theories. I don't want to confuse anybody here. I think that right now it is very fun to maybe speculate what could happen in the future after watching Superman, because it was a very good project, a project that made us excited for the DCU. So first things first, I believe that James Gunn and everybody working around him have been very secretive on what's going on here. Clearly there is a plan. And back on June 2025, he also had another interview with Entertainment Weekly, and he stated that he's currently writing another script that is in progress, and he is most likely also going to be directing that project. He also stated that it has nothing to do with a Superman sequel, and it does stand apart from a already announced DCU slate. He also explained that he fears that this concept that he is creating is easy to copy, so he's shelving this idea and keeping it away from the public until they get very close to production. And it was one of the first few pitches James Gunn had when he talked to David Zaslav and how to build their DCU partnership. Now, there has been speculations. People have said that it could be a Kingdom Come movie, but I believe that James Gunn is taking a much different approach. Now, to start off with the most safest route, what if the broad narrative of this whole thing is the Crisis on Infinity Earth's storyline? This storyline is basically the Infinity War and Endgame storyline to the DCU, where we do see a lot of universes get annihilated, right? The multiverse. A lot of key heroes are also killed. We see Supergirl sacrifice herself for Superman, and in the end, there ends up being just one universe, right? It's a very big story. However, I think that it's just too safe. I believe that whatever James Gunn is building right now is something very different that we have not seen in the MCU or anywhere else. Because if you really think about it, if he just goes with the Crisis on Infinite Earths storyline, it's just too safe. It very much just seems like he's copying what the MCU was doing in its first 11 to 12 years. All you have to do is just switch the heroes. What I believe could go on, and once again, this is pure speculation, and this is going to be theory number 2. I think that there is a reason why James Gunn has called this first phase Gods and Monsters. It is because the overall story here is about gods versus monsters. I believe that there is a possibility that James Gunn is also creating another project where we see a certain hero, we don't know what hero that could be, go up against a huge monster like Kong or Godzilla, which is something that we have seen in the comics. And this story can be amplified through the whole course of these next 10 years. This is considered as a crossover series. It is the Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong that was published by DC and Legendary Comics. And so yes, you're bringing in the DCU and the MonsterVerse together. This whole story began with the Legion of Doom, which is a group of villains breaking into Superman's Fortress of Solitude again, because we have already seen that in the first movie, to steal powerful relics. And during this heist that they had, the Toyman grabbed the Dreamstone and accidentally teleported the Legion to the MonsterVerse, a world that is populated by giant monsters like Godzilla and Kong. And then as they recognized the potential of these massive creatures and what they could do, Toyman used the Dreamstone to wish for the Kaiju to fight their enemies. Does this not sound very familiar? We have already seen Kaiju in the Superman movie. I think that there is going to be some modifications because we have already seen this monster. Maybe there could be somebody else that could emerge in future films. But in the end, I believe that they could merge and transport Godzilla and other monsters directly into the DC universe to battle against the Justice League. Ultimately, it does lead towards another battle, and to be more specific, Superman versus Godzilla, which I think could be a project that James Gunn could be creating here before we get to the ultimate battle between the Justice League and the MonsterVerse. In the storyline between Superman and Godzilla, we saw Godzilla arrive in Metropolis, and Superman did attempt to communicate with the monster and to reason with him, but the relationship fell through. Godzilla did not want to hear it, and so Superman had no choice but to engage in a physical combat, and he had to strike Godzilla through powerful punches. He also had to bring in Hawkgirl and Shazam. It was a very big battle, but it was not an easy battle for Superman. Godzilla was very resilient through the story and continued to attack Superman back. We can even say that Godzilla was very unfazed with this battle. And I think that if you truly want to give Superman a toe-to-toe battle and really test him, Godzilla is a pretty good opponent. I'm not going to go into further detail on this storyline here. Maybe you guys can go on and read it, but it's a very, very big story and a very interesting one. So James Gunn in the Superman film has already incorporated Kaiju. It is, once again, a giant monster that Superman had to battle. So it's almost like a teaser of what could go on in the future. James Gunn also explicitly stated that he was a big fan of Godzilla -1, and it was one of his major inspirations for his approach for Superman. He loved the way that it was able to balance giant monsters' actions with a lot of human drama. Now, what does all of this have to do with Peacemaker Season 2? I think that Season 2 is going to be very different from Season 1. Season 2 has a huge responsibility, which is to showcase why are they now merged into the DCU? How do they know James Gunn's Superman? The only thing that we do know now is that Peacemaker has access to the interdimensional portals, and he can travel between the old DCEU and the new DCU. This also explains one of the reasons why we saw in some scenes that there are two versions of Peacemaker. Could this be one of the ways James Gunn could explain on how different characters from different universes like the MonsterVerse can go into the DCU? It's going to be very interesting. I believe that Peacemaker Season 2 is going to have some answers. I can see now why this phase is being called Gods and Monsters. It's starting to become very clear. So let me know in the comment sections down below. Am I reaching here? Am I maybe over speculating, over theorizing? And what is going to be your take? Keep in mind that it's very secretive. It's going to be extremely hard to find out what James Gunn has under wraps. But what is going to be your thoughts? What do you believe is going to be the overarching story for these next 10 years? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.